How women dress does not mean yes. What is she wearing? Why is it whenever there is a case of rape, catcalling, sexual harassment towards women, this is the most frequently asked question, as if there is a significant relationship with the clothing of the victim and the twisted mind of the predator? As a woman, it scares me that people would put the blame on the victim and judge what type of clothing they're wearing when the incident happened. It seems that people nowadays do not see the root of the problem, and instead of breaking up the standard of blaming women on what they wear, they enable the minds of the predator by dismissing the idea that this is not about how women dress, but how someone thinks. How are we going to justify the clothing being the one to blame if the victim is a kid? Harassment is not only happening on teenagers, it is happening even to a child. That is why we must stop enabling the predators by questioning the victim and instead put the blame on how the people who harass. The issue of harassment towards women in the country is a never-ending argument whether who should be blamed and who really causes it. And I'm going to discuss these points that will enlighten us about sexual harassment in the country. The first one is victim blaming. According to Ramos 2021, the cases of online sex abuse towards children tripled during this time, that making quarantine the perfect cover for these criminal acts. And in addition, the reports of sexual harassment and domestic violence has increased, and yet the victims are largely held accountable for these crimes committed against them, making the victim discouraged from speaking up because whenever they do, they will end up being asked what are they wearing, as if it's their fault. The culture of victim blaming in the country is very problematic because it never sides the victim who are traumatized, that instead of coming forward and have the courage to speak up, they're being stopped by this culture. They are unjustly blamed and being held responsible. That induces the feeling of powerlessness, shame, and guilt. Second is the rape culture in the country. The Philippine Commission on Women states that rape is a crime and never a woman's fault. And how they dress or what their appearance is not an invitation for these crimes. Because rape victims are diverse regardless of what gender, status, and physical appearance is. And if people trivialize rape and normalize sexual harassment, the rape culture will continue to persist. No rape is justifiable because it is a crime and a violation towards human rights. That is why we must end this culture by teaching people, regardless of their sex, to value mutual respect and dignity, to build a society where we no longer blame the victims on what they wear and instead create a safe space for every individual that enables the victim to speak up and held the perpetrators responsible for the crime they commit. Lastly, let's talk about the Safe Space Act or the Bawal Bastos Law. It protects people from being harassed, physical and online, that creates a safe environment for people wherever or whenever. It fills the gap that are missing in the old law or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. According to Tejano, 2019, the safe space was used to private properties only, but then expanded. Since the cases of harassment in the country increase, this law will surely help every individual whenever they encountered such crimes, because this is created for us to feel safe and protected. All things considered, we must end victim blaming and rape culture in the country. Let the victims be heard because they deserve the support and sympathy of the people. And as a woman in the society, I speak for them. I speak for the unheard. A lot of them suffered because of how our society treats us. They are scared enough for what they experience, yet they're being dismissed by putting the blame on them. We must know better. I stand for all women who are greatly oppressed by the treatment of the majority. I stand because every woman deserves justice and a safe space to be in. We must remember that in this case, the root of the problem is not on how women dress, because clothing is not and will never be an invitation to be harassed. The root of the problem is the predators and people who harass itself, and dismissing this root make you an enabler. We must remember that how women dress does not mean yes.